Let me tell you the most expensive sentence in real estate. It's 4 words. I'll figure it out. It sounds brave. It sounds like the kind of thing a hungry, scrappy future millionaire says right before they make it. And sometimes it is. But most of the time, it's the sound of someone who confused being willing to do something with being built to do it. And those are not the same thing. And the gap between them has ruined more people than any market crash ever has. So here's what essentially nobody tells you when you're getting started. The first question is not how much money do I have? You can start with none. I'll prove that in a few. The first question is, am I actually cut out for this? And which version of this am I cut out for? Because there are two completely different games hiding under the words real estate, and people walk in thinking they're playing one when they're actually playing the other. And mixing them up, playing both at once before you're ready, is one of the most dangerous things a beginner can do. So let's untangle it. By the end, you'll know whether you're ready, what readiness even means, and which of the two games you should actually be playing first. Let's go. So let's start off and deal with the money thing right away, because it's the excuse everyone hides behind. I'd get into real estate, but I don't have any capital. All right, well, real talk here. Capital is the easiest missing ingredient to solve, and it's the one people obsess over because it's the most comfortable excuse. It lets you off the hook without having to look at anything harder about yourself. You can start in real estate effectively with no money. People wholesale, they find a great deal, they get it under contract, and assign that contract to a buyer for a fee, never owning the property at all. People house hack. They buy a duplex with a low down payment loan, live in one side, rent the other, and the tenant covers the mortgage. People bird dog deals for established investors, learning the entire business on someone else's dime while getting paid to find opportunities. People partner. They bring the hustle and the hours, someone else brings the cash and they split it. None of those require a pile of money. They require something else entirely. They require that you can actually find a deal, talk to a stranger without melting, follow through on the boring 90% and not fall apart the first time something goes sideways. And it's real estate, something always goes sideways. So, no, money is not the gate. Money is the thing that shows up after you've proven you can do the hard part, and the hard part's you. Which brings us to the real question. What does it actually mean to be cut out for real estate? It's almost got nothing to do with being smart, and it surprises people how little it has to do with being motivated. Motivation's cheap. Everybody's motivated at the start. Motivation is what gets you to buy the course. It is not what gets you through month 7 when the deal fell through, the contractor ghosted you, and the only person who believes in this is you, and even you're a little shaky. Being cut out for it is mostly 3 boring things, and boring is the point. First of all, can you tolerate uncertainty without spiraling? Real estate is a slow drip of unknowns. Will the appraisal come in? Will the tenant pay? Will the roof make it one more winter? If not knowing makes you physically unwell, well, that's worth knowing about yourself before you sign anything. 2, can you do the unglamorous thing repeatedly when no one's watching and there's no applause? Real estate is 90% follow up calls, spreadsheet updates, and driving to look at a property that turns out to be a dump, obviously, depending on what category of real estate you're in. The exciting part is maybe 2% of the job, and that's heavily front loaded in YouTube videos. Third thing, and this is the big one, can you separate your ego from your decisions? Because the market does not care how confident you felt. The deal that flatters you is often the deal that ruins you. Notice none of those were, do you have a finance degree? You don't need one. Plenty of people with finance degrees are spectacularly bad at this, mostly because they think the degree is the readiness. It isn't, and it's the furthest possible thing. It's just not. Now, here's the part that almost nobody separates out, and it's the whole reason for this video. When people say, I want to get into real estate, they're actually describing 2 different creatures wearing the same coat: the investor and the entrepreneur. They look similar from the outside. They are wildly different on the inside, and confusing them is how good people get hurt. The investor is playing a game of patience and probability. Their entire job is to put capital somewhere sensible and let time and math do the heavy lifting. A good investor is almost boring on purpose. They want predictable, repeatable, protected. They buy the unsexy rental in the stable neighborhood. They run the numbers conservatively. They assume things will go wrong and build in a cushion, and then they wait. The investor's superpower is restraint. Their highest skill is not doing things, saying no to 99 deals and saying yes to one. The entrepreneur is a completely different animal. The entrepreneur creates. They build the flipping business, the property management company, the development project, the thing that didn't exist yesterday. They live on vision, momentum, and a tolerance for risk that will give an investor a panic attack. The entrepreneur's superpower is the opposite of an investor's. It's action. It's the willingness to leap before every number is confirmed, because if you wait for certainty in a business, you will never build anything. You see the problem already, right? One of these is built on restraint, the other is built on action. One says wait, the other says go. And we're about to ask a brand new person to be both at the same time, which is roughly like asking someone to floor the gas and slam the brake in the same motion and being surprised when the transmission falls out. Here's why it gets extremely dangerous. And I want to slow down because this is the part that matters. When you blend the investor and entrepreneur in a beginner with no track record, the entrepreneur almost always wins the internal argument every time. Because the entrepreneur is the fun one. The entrepreneur has a big vision and the exciting upside and the story you get to tell at dinner. The investor is the quiet accountant in the back going, have we checked the comps? And no one wants to listen to that guy when there's an empire to build. So what happens is this. A new person decides they're an investor, stable, careful, building wealth. But then the entrepreneur in them gets the wheel. And suddenly the investment is a ground up development with a 3-person crew and a timeline drawn on a napkin. They've used investor money. The careful, protected, can't lose this money to fund an entrepreneurial gamble. And they don't realize they've done it because it all still lives under the word real estate. It's like telling everyone you're on a diet and then explaining that the entire sheet cake counts because it has eggs in it and the eggs are protein. Technically connected, spiritually a disaster. I've watched people take their stable, boring, money printing rental, the investor asset, and refinance every dollar of equity out of it to chase a flip because the flip was exciting and the rental was boring. They torched a sure thing to fund a maybe. That is not investing. That is the entrepreneur raiding the investor's bank account while the investor's asleep. And the reason it's so common is that the two voices are using the same vocabulary. They both say real estate. They both say opportunity. They both say, this will make money. But it's one of them talking about protecting capital, and one of them is talking about risking it. And if you can't hear the difference, then you will let the wrong one make your biggest decisions. So here's what to actually do with all this, especially if you're new. And we've all been there. I've been there myself. Keep them separate on purpose, with a wall between them. When you're brand new, you lead with the investor. Not because entrepreneurship is bad. It builds the biggest fortunes in this whole industry. But because the investor mindset is what keeps you alive long enough to ever get good. The investor's restraint is your seatbelt. You earn the right to take entrepreneurial swings by first proving you won't blow yourself up on the easy stuff. Practically, that looks like this. Decide before any deal which game it is. Out loud. This is an investor move. I'm protecting capital. I want boring and safe. Or this is an entrepreneur move. I'm building something. I accept that I might lose this. Both are legitimate. The danger is never the entrepreneur. The danger is the entrepreneur disguised as the investor, spending money that was never supposed to be at risk. And if you're going to take an entrepreneurial swing as a beginner, fine, do it. Do it with money you've specifically walled off and labeled as this can go to zero and it'll be okay. Never with the rent money, never with someone else's money, never with the safe asset, never with the capital that has a job to do. The people who last in this business aren't the boldest ones. They are the ones who knew which hat they had on at any given moment. Boring as it sounds, that's the whole secret. They never let the entrepreneur sign checks the investor was supposed to sign. So back to where we started. You don't need the money to begin. You really don't. There is a path in for someone with empty pockets and a real work ethic. And it's more honest than the one with a trust fund anyway. What you need is to know yourself well enough to answer two questions. Am I actually cut out for the boring, uncertain, glamorous grind of this? Yes or no, honestly. And when I make a move, do I know whether I'm being the investor or the entrepreneur? Did I choose that on purpose? Or did the fun one grab the wheel while I wasn't looking? Get those two right, and the money tends to show up. It always shows up for the person who's clearly not going to do anything stupid with it. That's the irony. The careful, self aware, slightly boring person attracts the capital, and the exciting one who mixed it all together is the one calling them for a loan 18 months later. So figure out which animal you are, respect the difference, keep them in separate rooms until you've earned the right to let them talk. And maybe, just maybe, don't refinance the house that feeds you to fund the dream that might not. That's the boring advice. It's also the kind that's still standing in 10 years. See you on the next one.